afternoon. Good afternoon. See, I told you, the second one's always the better one. It's such a pleasure to be back home here at North Carthage and get to see everybody again. It's a treasure and a delight to get to come home.
Absolutely.
And for those of you that get a chance to travel around and visit other churches, it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. There's no place like home. And I just want to extend my gratitude and my thanks to the church for having me here this afternoon. There's a whole lot of things you could be doing today. And usually just sitting down and listening to someone play piano is usually not very high on the priority list. But for you guys to take your time to come hear me today, I'm very honored and very thankful. Today is just going to be a lot of playing. I'm going to try to keep my chit-chat to a minimum. I'm going to give you some things a little bit along the way. I'll tell you a little bit about my testimony, a little bit about learning the piano and kind of that process. But rather than hear me talk, y'all really probably will just want to hear more of this, right? So I'm going to give you just a couple of other songs, and then after that, I'd like to ask that some of these young ladies from here at North Carthage come and sing for us after a while. So if there's a song that you recognize, if there's one that you want to try to sing along with, you are certainly more than welcome, and it will not offend me in the least. So see if you recognize some of these songs.
the river. So this is our rock hymn, rock gospel song.
Rock gospel. Well, you know, it makes me think of the preacher that got up and said, you know, I wish I could take all the wine in the world and I'd just take it and throw it down in the river. And I wish I could take all the whiskey in the world and throw it down in the river. And I wish I could take all the bourbon in the world and throw it in the river. Song leader gets up. What does he sing? Shall we gather at the river? Sorry. And you know, it makes me think of the phrase, you know, a lot of times in the churches, people like to say, this is the future of our church, right? This is the church right now. Right? We say, this is the future of the church. No, this is your church right now. So take your young people and get them involved, get them working. And girls, excellent job. Keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. So, oh, good. Charles Allen, Miss Puddin', hi. Good to see you. I ate a ham biscuit just for you.
Your mother's watching as well.
Oh, is she good? Hi, Mom. I know, you know what I look like. All right. So anyway, a little bit of my piano journey. When I first got started, I actually don't remember learning the notes of the piano. That was just something that in our house, you just knew. I don't even remember learning how to read. Mom just pushed that kind of stuff just as a young kid. She said the first song I ever sung, I was about 18 months old. And I knew the do-re-mi's at 18 months. That's just how it was. But growing up with my mother as a wonderful pianist, I had no desire to play because she had it covered. Because anytime we went somewhere to church, there'd usually be Miss Janice, would you come to piano? And she'd go, all right. So she'd go, she'd play. And one of the things I learned from her is if somebody takes the time to invite you or to ask you to play, you don't say no. Because if God gave you the talent to do something for Him, you don't need to neglect an opportunity to use it. So thank you, Mom, for that. when I was about a teenager, I'd already kind of decided guitar was going to be my main thing because, you know, I wanted to play rock and roll and do all that kind of fun stuff, and I loved it. And so the very best friends of my life, Kane and Bowman, his mom's right over here. Kane is one of my dearest friends, and we bonded a lot because of that. And I wouldn't have traded that for the world. But there comes a time when God lets you know that He's got other plans. So when I was about 14, we went to a singing convention out in West Tennessee, and I heard some wonderful piano playing. And I'd always heard it in these singing conventions. People that go to these just can absolutely eat a piano for breakfast. And I remember coming home, and I'd been to singing schools every summer and thought, you know, if I really just sat down, there really is no reason I can't play. It's just I'm the only reason I don't play. So I finally sat down and decided I'm going to learn this song because I really want to play it. It was written by a great writer, and it's got a good message. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to play. And I hate to say it, but because normally with most people, you sit down and you work and you take years of piano lessons, years and years and years of piano lessons, and then you get to where you might be able to play a song. For whatever reason, I had it in about a day.
God called.
And I was foolish enough to say, sure. So I'll play for you the first song that I sat down and decided I was 14. The song that I decided I was just going to sit down and play, and it was a Joe Roper song called Just Beyond the Dark Clouds. You've probably never heard it, but it's a beautiful song, and it's a lot of fun to play. So maybe you'll enjoy it. Now this is probably what it would have sounded like when I started. Then over time, for indulging me on that one. Something about growing up here at North Carthage I'll forever be thankful for is a lot of times in church when you hear music, a lot of what you'll hear are gospel songs, and gospel songs are great, but Dad always made sure that, especially at Sunday school, we heard the old hymns of the church. And there was an article, I actually got to be in a Southern Baptist magazine. Mature Living did an article about the Redback hymnal. And they asked me to do a little contribution for it. And what I talked about was how the richness and depth of the old hymns are timeless. And what's really neat about these songs is in an ever-changing world where everything is just constantly in flux and everything is changing, I think a lot of us crave something that is timeless. And something that you can grab hold of, and something that will always mean something. Some of the songs that I enjoy the most are these old hymns. So these are some that I'm sure some of you will recognize, and you are welcome to sing along. Kill me for this next part, but when you travel around, you find that different churches do it in different styles. What you've heard is what we call unit rhythm, and what I would call church rhythm. That's the way the song was written. That's the way it was meant to be played. Right, Mom? Yeah, okay. So in some churches, they like to do dual rhythm, which means it's double time. In other words, people say it's faster. It's really not, but it sounds faster. So sing that last verse with me, and then we'll try it in dual rhythm and just kind of see how it goes. Good, thank you, thank you. There's another great song. You may know this one, you may not, but this is for a lot of my Presbyterian or Methodist friends. Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Beautiful hymn. Now, some of you are probably going, Danny Boy in church, really? No, that actually is the tune to Danny Boy, but they reset it to a hymn. Dottie Rambo wrote the lyrics, He looked beyond my fault and saw my need. If you've never heard it before, you should. Beautiful, beautiful song. Up next, I want to talk a little bit about a certain writer. And I know you hear that a pretty good bit. Byron is very, very knowledgeable about hymn writers. But there's one in particular that I absolutely, absolutely love. Fanny Crosby. And I know many times you've heard the story of Miss Crosby told. She was a very, very sweet, mild, humble Methodist woman. And she was a prolific hymn writer in the late 19th century here in the United States. And what's fascinating about Miss Crosby is all these songs that she wrote many years ago have lasted the test of time. Hi, Jesse. How you doing, buddy? And it's astonishing to me how her, just a little blind woman, could be used in such a mighty way. And what's cool is the more you dig about her, the more you realize just how fascinating she is. I didn't know this. She was the very first female to speak in the United States Congress. She was asked to lead prayer for one of their sessions. And it's just little things like that just let me know that God moves among his people and uses them in a very, very wonderful way, in ways we often can't really even begin to describe or understand. But he uses us anyway. See if you recognize this one. that is one of her most beloved hymns, I would probably say. If she never wrote another one, that would probably be the one to last the test of time. But there's another one that Fanny Crosby wrote that is probably my personal favorite. How many of you, and this is probably one where not many hands will go up, so if your hand doesn't go up, don't think you're a bad person. Who here has ever heard the hymn, My Savior First of All? By the title you may not know, but if you think, I shall know him, I shall know him, by the print of the nails in his hands, I shall know him, I shall know him, by the print of the nails in his hands. Now think about those words for a minute. Who are they coming from? A blind lady. She was interviewed once, and she was asked if she could have her eyesight restored, would she? She said no. Anybody know why?
Yep.
Why?
First face she wanted to see was Jesus.
Exactly. A+. The very first face she wanted to see was the face of her Savior, Jesus Christ. What faith and what a testimony that is. If I could sit and interview her here today, that would be a whole lot better than anything I could do. But if you will indulge me, I do want to play My Savior First of All. While I'm on the hymn kick, This is one that I will forever remember. This was the song that when Dad would get to direct the singing, all he had to do was call the number, and Bill Coughlin would say amen. Exactly. You knew it. And I remember he would always say, number 11, amen. And then sure enough, it took a few Sundays, but then it got to where pretty much all the men in the house would he'd say number 11, amen. I thought, would y'all just hold your horses? We haven't even sung the first note yet. But anyway. Music obviously has been kind of the thing I'm most known for. It certainly isn't good looks. And thank you. Modesty, yes. It's not for good looks, and it certainly is not for my math skills. It certainly isn't my ability in science or anything like that. But music, yeah, that was my strength. I also wasn't going to college on football scholarship or anything like that. So everybody's got to have something, right? And every one of us is on our own journey. Everybody has their gifts, and God gifts us in different ways. And I love to see God's people
do whatever it is that they do for His glory. And some of y'all love to watch me play. I'll tell you what I love to see. I remember when the sign got put in years ago, and I remember watching Bill and Marion work on the sign. And I got the biggest blessing out of that. Because I know that at the time, there would always be these quiz questions. That's kind of how it started. And what I loved to hear was when people would actually talk about it in the community. Well, Ricky, what the answer is? And Lord forbid people actually talk about Scripture in Smith County, out and about at Tractor Supply or wherever they are, you know.
A lot of them found their Bibles.
Really?
A lot of them found their Bibles.
Well, there you go. If people can find their Bible and dust it off every once in a while, what a wonderful thing. And I love to see when everybody can use their gifts in the best way possible. And at the church, really what we should be doing is looking and seeking out for people with different gifts and saying, go. Do it. Do the thing that God has called you to do. We're going to help you every way we know how. And this church certainly did that for me. And I know that if you're somebody that's looking for a church home, North Carthage is going to be one of the absolute best places for you for that. Speaking of people with wonderful gifts, Richard Brooks invited this young man to come be with us today. And he has absolutely floored me. He's going to the music school this summer, and I have absolutely just been floored by his talent. I heard he could play, and of course, when you travel, you hear a lot of people say, well, my grandson, you just need to hear him play. And then you hear him play and say, oh, all right, well, thank you, Pam. And then say, oh, you need to hear my daughter. Oh, yeah. How long has she been taking? Oh, 2 weeks. Yeah, this shows, yeah. Well, I heard, this young man, you need to hear him play. And I thought, well, Richard wouldn't just say that about just anybody. And I thought, well, let's hear this guy. And Taylor Glover, I'd like to invite you to come and play a couple songs just because he has absolutely floored me. And I wish y'all would make him feel welcome. This is Taylor Glover. And his friend Taylor.
He got a scholarship at Cumberland.
Oh, yes, and I probably should mention that too. He's got a scholarship at Cumberland. And this is what, is this your sophomore year you're going into?
Junior year, actually.
Junior year. So everyone, we're real excited. And Taylor, I'll just let you take it away for 2 songs and give me a break. actually, I got to pause on this while they're still moving around. It tickles me to death. There's a really great YouTube is one of the most wonderful things. If you've not been on YouTube, which probably everybody has at this point, but there's a wonderful video of this gentleman singing this song, and when he starts the second verse, he said, "Wretched lives we're oh so glad to see." Don't make that same mistake. I'll tell you a little more of my journey. When you start to learn to play, and I sat and decided I'm going to play, and I played my first song, and I was excited. And I was in the key of F. There's 12 other keys, and then every key has a minor key, and when you start realizing, oh boy, I bit off a lot more than I could chew. But what's funny is if God gives you a job to do, He will give you every opportunity along the way to equip you to better yourself. Because God don't want no junk, ladies and gentlemen. He wants us to do the very best that we can for Him. And along the way, I started meeting different people, and Mom and Dad saw to it that I started taking piano lessons. One thing that surprises people is people say, oh, well, you took from your mama, didn't you? No. She did not want me anywhere. She wanted to make sure that some of the habits she developed, I didn't have to develop. And Dad tried to work with me some, but I'm bullheaded and he is too, and that never ended well. And so he's wonderful. I love him. But he and I, we just kind of go at things a little different, and that's fine. And Dad's a wonderful player. Mom's a wonderful player. But they saw to it that I went and took from different folks. First piano lessons were with Mr. Eugene McCammon. We sung his song today, Never Say Goodbye. And he was the one that challenged me to learn classical and to push as hard as I could go, learn all my scales, the stuff that just I did not want to do, he made me do. And I was not a very good student. He would probably tell you that. But I somehow got to where I eventually started buckling down. I took from him for a little while. I took from Andy Stringfield a little bit. He's playing for the Kingdom Heirs, or was playing for the Kingdom Heirs out in Pigeon Forge now, full-time. And then I started taking a little bit from Eddie Crook. Many of us know Eddie. I've taken some lessons from him. As a matter of fact, I got to have lunch with him yesterday. That's why we did What a Meeting in the Air, because he and I both had that on our minds. And then started taking from probably one of the most pivotal people was Tracy Phillips. And if you start listening to gospel music for a very long time and start talking about piano players, she's never too far away from the conversation. And I took a few lessons off of her, and she prepped me for college. And once I got to college, I started as a vocal primary, took voice lessons my first year, and I could sight read the stuff that they were handing me and thought, well, this isn't much of a challenge, so I decided, let's do piano. And I took from Dr. Rice C., Dr. Lynn Rice C., it's one of those hyphen names, And she was a Juilliard person. And when I started learning from her, I realized there's a whole lot more to piano than I even thought I knew. The way that she could pull sound out of the instrument, does air move as far as like you would play the tuba when you're playing the piano? No. You strike a string and it vibrates. That's how it works. I heard her play and the sound would spin out of the instrument as though you were blowing into it. Freakiest thing I've ever seen. And she was the one that probably pushed me harder than anybody. And Dr. Ricey, I love her, and she will forever be a treasure. I took from her for 3 years. I loved every minute of it. And she helped me overcome my fear of having to play classical and push me really hard in that arena. And around the time I started college, I started getting asked to teach in these singing schools. Like I mentioned that I had attended as a student for years and years. My last summer as a student was in 2009. Later in that summer, I was asked to teach in West Virginia. And I taught in a school up there called the Mountain State School of Gospel Music. It was a brand new school. And we all of us young teachers, all the teachers were around 30 years old and younger. So that's kind of unusual in Shaking Up Music to have that young of the faculty. And several of us stayed at the Leap Trot House. Of course, when I first heard that last name, I thought, okay, well, this is some bed and breakfast or something like that. No. Apparently, you got to leap before you can trot. I guess that's how that works. Turns out, 3 of our faculty members were Leap Trots. That was their last name, and we had Andrew, Brendan, and Katie. And we stayed out there for the week, and Katie kind of took a liking to me, and I took a liking to her. And there was another music school happening, the West Virginia School of Gospel Music, and I still teach there to this day in the summer. And I remember I had asked her, I had to drive all the way back from West Virginia here to Carthage to play for the Smith County Beauty Pageant. And they gave me some roses on Tuesday, and I left on Wednesday to go back to West Virginia and gave Katie my roses. And I told her if I came back to West Virginia, would she let me take her to dinner? Well, through this music, I got to probably meet the absolute greatest helpmeet that I could have ever asked for. And God has been very good to me. And I'd like to ask her if she would mind indulging me, since this is an afternoon with Seth, and I guess what I say goes, maybe. Just for this afternoon. At night it can be you again. But since it's this afternoon, would you sing something with me?
Amen.
Cool. Dr. Katie Leaptrot, everybody.
Give a little background on what she's doing.
Well, if I do, this is usually when people's eyes start to glaze over, but she has her PhD in chemistry from Vanderbilt, and she finished that from Vanderbilt. And she finished that last year, and she is now working full-time as a postdoc, doing research there in the Stevenson Center at Vanderbilt, and cracking down on lipids and all. And what's the latest project? Anything absolutely earth-shattering and fantastic?
I have been studying polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons with liquid chromatography, ion mobility, mass spectrometry.
And that's when I realized I can't even spell that. So, but you know, it's funny, Chuck, your daddy. When Katie and I got married, it wasn't too long after. I can't remember what was happening. We had a service going on here, and Brother Gentry said, "Well, Seth went to West Virginia to teach a singing school, and they paid him with a woman." She don't like that very much, but I do. I think it's great. We're going to sing a song called "Closer to You."
Each time
an artist will get up and say, all right, if you want to purchase this CD, and it is a limited supply, and we run out, then I'll go to the car and we'll get another limited supply. Right? I'm not going to do that because I don't have an album. So if you want to hear me, you can look on YouTube, and there's people who've done stuff, so you can do it that way. But I'll
We
take
would
this.
love for you to make an album, please.
Maybe, we'll see, anytime.
Talk to Eddie.
That's what I was thinking.
In time. What I will tell you is that I'm an advocate for church singing and church music and good church singing and good church music. Back in March, we had a hymn singing in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And we've usually done a redback hymn singing, and those have been very popular. If you've never gone to one, go. As a matter of fact, you mentioned Eddie Crook. He is hosting one coming up on June 22nd at 6 p.m. If you want to sing in the choir, come at 4:30. It's open to anybody that wants to come. If you have enjoyed today and you want to just get up and sing the whole night, come to McFerrin on June 22nd. It'll be a wonderful evening, a lot of surprises. Matter of fact, he and I had lunch yesterday to talk about it. It's going to be a wonderful night. So please try to come on June 22nd. But in Murfreesboro, back in March, we had a Heavenly Highway hymn sing. And we used this book, which was published in 1989, and I was brave and reached out to the publishing company. They're out of Nashville, Brentwood Benson. And I told them what we were doing, and this book turns 30 years old this year. And this was put together by Harold Lane and Ben Spear and Jack Taylor. It's an absolutely excellent book. Everything in it has been completely re-edited. It's very neat and clean to read. And when I messaged them and said, hey, we're doing this, we're about 45 minutes from your office, would you guys send some sales representatives? Maybe people might be interested in buying your book. They came back and said, how about this? How about we give 300 hymnals, and everybody that attends that night gets to leave with one.
Oh, wow.
And that absolutely floored me. And these folks are, and I've got to go to their office and spend time with them over at the Capitol, not the Capitol, but their Capitol Records. The Bill Gaither group is there, and several offices for gospel music are there. And just get to sit and talk to these folks. They were so fired up. When they came, they were just so excited to see this music still being sung. And you guys sing this kind of music every Sunday. And this is something that is a treasure. And people don't get to hear this, especially when you get out further outside of, over toward Nashville and Cookeville. This music is something that people are hungry for. I just wanted to say, if you'd be interested, they have an online store, and these books are $10 each. They offer some church discounts. If you tell them that I recommended you, I don't know, they may offer a discount, they may not. But these are some really sweet folks, and they also have wonderful resources for choir directors, things of that nature, great arrangements. Brentwood Benson, highly, highly recommend them. Check them out. Another thing I wanted to mention, and you know, I don't have my own product, so I'm going to sell other people's. There are 2 books. If you want to learn to play gospel piano at the absolute best, there's one of my absolute favorite piano players, Stan Whitmire out of Georgia. And if you've never heard Stan or ever seen him, his hands, I've got pretty large hands, but his thumb comes out about that much further than mine. And when he plays, it's unreal. He has 2 books that are note-for-note transcriptions of his albums. This is his piano hymns collection, and it's got songs like Blessed Assurance, It Is Well, 'Tis So Sweet to Trust in Jesus, Wonderful Peace, He Hideth My Soul. You can get this on Amazon now for only like $15. So if you're an aspiring pianist and you want to learn really good quality hymn playing, this is how to do it. If you're more interested in the fast gospel music-ish kind of stuff, this is the book for you. His old-time gospel piano album is incredible. You can order the CD, or it's not the CD, but order the MP3 tracks online on Apple Music. And then if you get this to go with it, you can see note for note what Stan is playing. It's a wonderful way to kind of follow along. And this was what I got started on when I thought, I want to be a good piano player. If you try to play something like Stan, if you get halfway there, you're better than a lot. So I highly recommend checking out Stan Whitmire's piano books and ordering his albums online, because you can't go wrong there. So there's that. So where do we go from here? I'll tell you just probably one of the last important parts of my piano journey that's kind of led me here. When I, 2006, I guess this is when this happened. We had the Tennessee State Singing Convention here for the second time. And we've had it 3 times, so this church knows good singing. I'll never forget, there was a lady there named Ruth Stewart from Georgia, and Ruth is just one of those fireball convention piano players. And when my mother was expecting me, she said that when we went to the singing, there had been about 6 weeks where I hadn't moved at all. And if you're expecting your child ain't moving, that's scary. And said she went into the singing, and Ruth was called up to the piano instantly. I was just kicking like crazy. Well, she came here to our singing in 2006, and I was just kind of getting started at that point. And you can choose to believe this or not, but I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it. I remember right outside those doors at the end of the walkway, she was about to leave, and I wanted to thank her because I got a chance to play with her. To me, that was a big deal. And I went and hugged her. And there's a song that Midnight Cry where it talks about a mighty rushing wind. I swear to you, there was something that just almost knocked me over. And earlier that day I had prayed, Lord, if you'll help me get over my nervousness, I'll go wherever you'll have me go. I'll play whatever you want me to play, for whoever you want me to play for. And don't ask God things if you're not willing to deliver. Because He can bless far and above anything you could ever imagine. And here I am, this little guy, in Trousdale County of all places. And I'm nothing. But God has given me a chance to get to meet some wonderful people, to play for Him and to sing for Him. And for the opportunity to get to come home and play and sing for you guys today is probably one of the greatest treasures of them all. So, if God gives you a job to do, and He is just and able to equip you and help you with whatever it is He's called you to do, then it is up to you to just say, Lord, I'll go and do whatever you want me to do, however you want me to do it, and you'll get all the glory. And as long as that's the case, door after door after door after door after door will open for you. So I'll leave you with this scripture that is kind of the one that's probably the most ingrained in my heart since I started. And that's Luke 12:48. And it just says, of whomever much is given, of him shall much be required. And Brother Anthony, you were talking about how blessed we are here at this church, and just all of us in general. We're blessed to be in a country where we can worship freely. We are blessed to be able to seek the Lord if we need to and not be afraid of somebody shooting us. We're able to do so. We're so blessed. Most of us don't even have to go hungry. But we take so much for granted. If God is so able to bless us that far, then we need to be able to go and try to serve Him to the best of our ability. By the way, Brother Anthony, he was talking about being hot, cold, lukewarm. I tell you what, if he would ever just quit halfway preaching, then we'd be in good shape. I tell you, I've never heard, there is no halfway with Brother Anthony. And didn't he do a wonderful job? I think he threw everything at us but the kid to sing. So anyway, folks, I'm going to leave you with just a couple numbers, if y'all don't mind. So, and then we'll be done.
Amen.